This is the demo for Oracle Cloud Procurement. Uh, so let's start with this introduction from my end. So myself Sanjay, and I have experience of 11 years into corporate. So from past 6 years, I have implemented around 8 Oracle Cloud implementations. So currently, I'm working for Dubai projects, which is a very big project in Dubai. It's Dubai Holding. I was on site for 6 months there. So I have implemented the modules into product information management, inventory management, and procurement. So previously, before the Dubai, and I was coordinated directly with Oracle India. So I have implemented couple of US projects with Oracle there. So overall, like I have 11 years of experience into corporate life. So this is my introduction. So Tamara, if you can introduce yourself, it's good.
Okay, Tamara Abaidat. I'm working as a procurement professional in Emirates General Petroleum in Dubai. I have experience of 19 years, okay, for procurement and contracts management, vendor management, and also I was engaged in the last 5 years with the Oracle implementation in two different entities. So now
Mhm.
I'm trying my level best to enhance the expertise in Oracle Fusion, especially for the functional role. So that's why I'm joining this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, nice. So Tamara, what I understand, like you are as an end user into Oracle or like,
Yes, yes, I'm user for the Oracle Fusion. We are using it in our organization to
okay,
support our procurement activities and vendor management, supplier registration, and also as well contract management. So I'm a user,
awesome.
yes.
Awesome. So in this process, right, we would be covering a, couple of more modules other than the suppliers or the vendor, the modules which you cover currently. So I'll just start with the fusion modules that we have. As you are most aware, like you know, the supplier portal, which supplier would be accessing for the vendor management. We also have a supplier qualification where we can use this module for to qualify any suppliers coming in as like once the supplier is onboarded, right? And we also have the sourcing, which is nothing but the negotiation that we do with the suppliers for any requisitions that were created, right? So this talks about that and self-service procurement, as you know, like this talks about you as on today, I think you must be creating your requisitions from your department. So those requisitions will convert into purchasing, which is nothing but a PO. So these are the different modules that we have currently in Oracle Cloud. Apart from this, as you mentioned, we also have a contract management, which is nothing but we have a contracts with the suppliers. So that is a different module altogether. So I think you are most aware of all these modules which are currently in procurement, right?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. So obviously, like you are most aware of this process flow also. Like we have the requisitions where if it is required, then we go for quotations, which is nothing but we use the sourcing module here. So we can ask for a quotation from a supplier. So if we get multiple responses from the suppliers, then we go with that quotations and quote analysis, and from there the purchase orders gets created. So once it is created and sent to the supplier, right, they would be receiving your goods from your supplier. Once it is received, then the invoice will be created and the payment will be done based on that. So this is entirely a procurement process flow, how it is as on today on the Oracle Cloud. So as you know, like mostly the supplier onboarding, these are the process flows that I'm showing you currently. So once you start identifying a supplier, right, you must be sending an URL to the supplier where to fill in all the information from. So this is one of way of onboarding a supplier. So other ways, like as a buyer, you can have access to manually create any supplier. So it totally depends on the client. Like if they are going in the way like to send out an link to onboard a supplier, then this URL will be sent out. Then supplier will provide the information, whatever the information is required. Like you'll have the supplier profile, addresses, sites, contact information, and everything, including the bank information and all. So once the
Mm.
supplier submits, right, after the information is provided, then it will go for an approval process. So in procurement, we have something called approval process for link through external link and also internal suppliers, where we can configure the approvals for the suppliers. So once it is approved, then the supplier will be created in the Oracle instance. So supplier can also be created in two ways. There will be two links which Oracle provides us, which is like prospective supplier and spend authorized. As you
Spend
are more
authorized.
aware, like prospective is something where that particular supplier won't be able to perform any transactions in the procurement cloud. So he'll be on hold until he is like moved to a spend authorized, where spend authorized talks about he can like perform any transaction like creating a PO or an invoice from there. So this chart basically talks about the process flow of onboarding a supplier. So throughout the sessions that we would be covering each and everything, what all the setups that are required to set up a supplier from behind the scenes, and how the approvals can be set based on the different scenarios that we have. So from there, once the setups are done, then we start as a supplier, we'll create it, we'll approve it, and we can see the supplier onboarded. So any questions here, Tamra?
No, it's clear. Thank you. You can proceed.
Mhm. So this is one thing, and the next process talks about the negotiation, which is nothing but the sourcing module that we use in cloud. So this talks about how you create a negotiation, and for creating a negotiation, you use different negotiation templates. So before a negotiation, you can have a different templates, and also it talks about the styles where the standard and the two stage. There will be like we'll have a deep dive sessions throughout the session that we would be covering as part of a negotiation. And also it also talks about the types of negotiation, like the quotation or the auction or just for information. So once you select these things, right, once you create all the negotiation information, including the requirement and all, so even this have an approval process. So where we can set up an approvals for these negotiations also internally. So once it is approved, then it will go for an acknowledgement of a supplier. Then the supplier will create and submit the response from his side. So there are two ways that Oracle provides us, like where if the supplier is having an access to supplier portal, right, they can go ahead and create supplier responses. Otherwise, there is also a way where if the supplier is not having access to supplier portal, on behalf of supplier, we can respond to the supplier, that we call a surrogate response here, right? So these are the two ways. Like once the response is submitted, then we unlock the negotiations and we analyze and award the negotiations to those particular suppliers. So this is the entire process flow, how the negotiations would work in the sourcing module that we have currently. So I'm just explaining you at the high level, like how the process flow looks like. In the deep dive sessions, in the during the sessions, we'll be covering each part of how we set up these information, like the templates and the styles and the approvals and different kind of things. So once the setups are done, we'll start with the process flow, how it looks like. Any questions from on this page?
No, clear. Please, you can proceed.
Awesome. So if you see here, right, this is something we are talking about, the procurement process of the requisitions. So here we see we create a requisition. So once the requisitions is created, we'll have an approval process. So once that is done, it goes to a purchase order creation. So once a purchase order is created and sent to a supplier, right? Once you receive a goods from the supplier, then the warehouse person, whoever is responsible for receiving, they will perform the receipts. And once the receiving is done, then the payables go and do the invoicing and the payment will be done based on. So this is completely on the procurement process. Once the supplier is onboarded and if you have any negotiations done, then you can take it from the requisition page. Like you have different departments. For example, let's say you have a department of F&B and retail. So there would be different departments where F&B would be creating their own requisitions and retail would be creating their own requisition based on their items and on catalogs. If there are any punch out, also like they can have a punch out catalog items. From there, like this requisition will turn on to a PO where this PO will be like received from the suppliers and the warehouse person will be receiving. This is the entire process flow of how the procurement looks like. But in this process flow, there would be different setups required as a functional consultant, where you would be going back and doing different setups, where I would be taking to that as well after this process flows. Even this talks about the in deep drive, like of the same requisitions. So these requisitions once created, right, as I mentioned, it goes for an approval. Like once the approvers approve it, right, they review the equation, and once the equation is approved, it goes to a PO creation page. So these are all the processes that we do, but I'm just trying to show you a flow chart how this process looks like in Oracle Fusion. Obviously, Tamara, you are aware of these things. So, so when we talk about the receiving part, right, in the Oracle Cloud, once the procurement is once you have received goods from your supplier, once the PO is cut and the receiving is done, then then the supplier would be shipping the goods. You would be receiving the material in the warehouse. So you would be performing an inspection if required. So in Oracle, there are three ways to receive it. You would be directly receiving it in your go down, like in your warehouse, or if you choose for a standard delivery, right, you would be receiving it and you would be putting it away into your staging location. So there will be two locations where you would be receiving first and you will be putting in a staging location. But this inspection comes in a three-way, like where you receive it, where if you want to perform any inspection, right, if there are any damaged goods or something like that in your warehouse, so you would be performing the inspection. From there, if you want to accept, then it goes to a receiving. If you want to reject, then it goes to a return to vendor option also. So Oracle Cloud also provides where if you receive any goods which are damaged, then it you can always have an option to return to vendor, which would be shipping to vendor back. So if you are accepting in this position where after receiving is done, if it is putting in a staging location, then you will perform a put away in the storage location. So it totally depends on the client that we work upon, like what is the method that they would be choosing upon at the receiving level. So if it is a direct receiving, these all steps doesn't come into picture. It would be direct receiving. If you are going for inspection, this is how it looks like at the broader level. So I would like also to talk about the approach structures, how we have in the objective, like by phase during the implementation slide. So this is how the implementation looks like and how we start the implementation in Oracle Cloud. We have a project design where we confirm and we'll have a plan on a page of entire project, and then the kickoff meeting will start with the management and along with the consultants and the leads. So we'll gather, set up the information, and based on a couple of requirement gathering sessions that we have, then we'll start configuring the things, and then we'll validate. And certain cases there will also be like most of the cases, 90% there would be projects where like clients would be coming from a different would be moving from different ERP. Let's say currently I'm working for a client of Dubai Holding where they are moving from Adaco to Fusion. So in that case, we have a data migration activities where all the data, which is nothing but their items, on-hand items, and blanket purchase agreements and the purchase orders. So all this will be moved from Adaco to Fusion. Similarly, if they are using any EBS or JDE, they would be moving their everything from their existing legacy system to the Fusion system. So there we will be having this load and reconciling option. For that case, we will be preparing a cutover strategy. So these are the different things that we have during the configuration method. Then we validate it. Then once everything is done, during this validation, we'll have a test scripts and the scenarios that we would be creating for client scenarios. And there would be a SIT for any integrations, and UAT will be conducted for all the configurations that are done, including with the loaded data. So once this is done, then we'll train the trainer, which is nothing but we call it as key user trainings, where you would be training business end users. So once that is done, then the transition happens, which is nothing but this everything here. It is done in the UAT instance, which is nothing but the test instance. This will be moved to your production instance. Production instance is nothing but the live instance that you would be using after post go live. So once it is gone live with all the information loaded, right? Then we'll have one of like it's like a hypercare activities for 1 month. That will be a post go live support. So this is how the approach, like all the implementations happen across Oracle Cloud. So you have any questions on this?
No.
Awesome. So this talks about in detail of like what exactly happens during the project design. We'll have a, like as I explained, we'll have a project and the kickoff meeting. We'll have a scheduled workshops. Then we'll have a design workshops on the functional side. And if there are any reports or if there are any integrations happening, right, then we'll have a technical design workshops as well. Then we'll have a conduct design review. Then we'll set up everything in a configuration, including the configuration and the data migration activities, which is nothing but the load and validate data. So everything is done. We'll have a cutover strategy, then we'll validate everything, then we'll move it to the production. And this talks about the post go live activities. This talks about the broader picture of like how the implementation starts and how it ends. So let me show you actually the prospect of what all the things that we would be covering as part of these training sessions, right? So there would be certain topics where we would be needed, like all the functional consultants, as a functional consultants, we would be using the system to set up these things. So once these are set up only, then we can perform a testing and we can provide a demo to the end user, right? So these are the setups that we would be using. So I would be covering all these things, like how we can provide a user role and the data access, and how we can create a locations, and how we can create a business units. Although these things are not part of procurement, I just want to cover it because these are the basic things that would be required. So you would be having your locations. Suppose let's say you are running an FNB and you would be having a certain location. Let's say Tamar, you are in Dubai. Let's take A in Dubai for currently. That's a location. So that will be one of the business unit. This item organization, like in Fusion, will have an this is something like it holds all the items together, which is nothing but a master org, where you would be assigning your inventory ops, which is nothing but let's take an FNB business. You will have different outlets. So those outlets can be your inventory organizations. Let's say if you're taking a retail business, one outlet will be your inventory organization. So under your outlet, there will be certain sub inventories. And if you're using any locators, then we can define it. And we also cover the unit of measures. So these are the minimum basic setups required. So we would be covering on all the setups which are required for functionals on the procurement side. So the main setup that we would be covering is on the TAD, which is nothing but the charge account reflection. So once you create a requisition, right, there will be charge account which would be populating. So how we configure it. So even that I will cover that. That is a main thing which would be covering and which would take more time here. And we'll also cover certain things on how to create a descriptive flexi fields and what are the like how we can create the business buyer assignment rules. And if you're talking about the receiving, right, how we can have it descriptive flex fields at the receiving level and how we can perform, how we can set up a receiving parameters. And this is the main thing like self-service procurement or configuration where you would be concentrating more on uh, these configurations. And we also talk about the approvals, how we set up approvals for the requisitions, purchase orders. And we, as I mentioned, like there would be certain approvals based on the supplier registrations also. So we would also be covering that. So these approvals and TAD is something which is primarily concentrated upon in the procurement process. So once these are set up, then we can go into a process flow. So once those are set up, right, these will be your transactions where you can perform your requisitions and you can perform requisitions using a catalog and smart forms and using non-catalogs. You can also do a receiving and returns. So these will all be your transactions based on the setup that you do. And we'll also do some transaction like configurations for the supplier portal access. So these are the like a few configurations which are required for the supplier side. Once that is done, we can the supplier portal access can also be accessed based on these things. So we'll also cover this, and there are also certain setups that we need to check out at the sourcing level, which is nothing but the negotiations. So these are the certain mandatory setups required for the negotiation process flow also. So once these setups are done, then we go and do the transactions. So usually my agenda is to first set up a system, just know how these setups are affecting the transactions. From there, we can have a transactions. Once you know how to set up a system and like where these setups are affecting it at the transaction level, then it would be very easy for you guys to understand. And similarly, we would be also covering the supplier qualifications where you would be creating the questions, qualification areas, and rule sets. And I also have a plan to cover few FBDIs and the reports as well on OTBI report. So these would be like I would be covering few templates. These are mandatory because most of the things I see, like 90% you see data migration projects where you would be converting your purchase orders, requisition blanket agreement, suppliers. So I'm also having a plan to take 3 hours for these three things. So to cover like what all the different fields and how we can load the data. So any questions on these topics that we are going to cover, Tamara or Javed?
Oh, thank you, Sanjay.
Clear
Okay.
from my side.
So this is what I have. Like Javed, if you want to introduce yourself, right, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry, I joined actually 10 minutes late, so I thought of not
No worries.
interrupting. My name is Jawad. I'm working in procurement in
Mhm.
Emirates Petroleum Company, Dubai, with
Okay.
Ms. Tamara.
Okay. So you're working as an end user or like you're working as a functional person?
Oh, no, as a functional, actually, as a to be honest, as a officer contracts. So basically functional.
Okay. So you hold experience into functional for how many years?
Not yet actually. In the back end, no.
Okay.
Mainly
So
in
you,
processing
so,
side only.
okay. So you similarly as a Tamara, you would be working as a business end
Exactly.
user. So you would be
Exactly.
performing only the transactions. To
Exactly.
know this transaction, what are the setups that are required? This sheet talks about the setups required to perform your transactions at the high level. So just quick thing, Java, like we have covered these things here, the modules that you'll be covering and procurement process flows, how we have. So these are the different modules, Java, that we have: supplier portal, qualification, sourcing, and
Mhm.
self-service procurement. So today I believe like you must be mostly using this self-service and purchasing as an end user. You would be creating your requisitions and POs and receiving maybe.
Correct.
Yeah. So I'll show you the different setups required to perform to achieve these transactions. Along with this, these would be a different modules which it would be helpful for you guys how to configure things and how to set up, and based on these setups how we can create the transactions. So this is what I have for today. Like if you have any other questions, right, you can feel free to ask. Even I was in Dubai for last 6 months. I just returned back to India. So as an end user, right, Damar, what exactly is your daily activities on the Oracle Fusion page?
Here I'm part of the approval process for all the transaction related to supplier registration, supplier change requests, and as well
Okay.
for negotiation approval for launching, for awarding recommendation. But also there is another part related to solving the issues, daily issues, if there is
Mhm.
any errors, also monthly closing. So all these type of transactions.
Got it. Got it. Obviously, you must be aware of all these pages. So only thing that you would be getting into as a functional consultant, right? This page, obviously, for now, you would be going here and performing your requisitions or like creating suppliers or all these stuffs. But as a functional consultant, before doing this testing, right, there's something called setup and maintenance. If you see this option called setup and maintenance, here is the place where you perform all your setups. So here is the place where you come and do the procurement. If you see here, change opt-in features, right? I'll show you how we can opt in first. So this is an option where based on the license that your client is having, then you can opt in features in Oracle. So this will enable you the options to set up these different modules. It's taking some time.
Sanjay, meanwhile, will the training cover analytics, dashboard, BI as well?
No, Javed. As I mentioned, right, this will cover the data migration activities like the FBDI templates along
Okay.
with the reports and analytics. This report and analytics talks about only the OTBI reports, not the BIP reports.
Okay.
So this is the place like where you come in and opt in. Until unless you don't enable these things, you won't be able to see options. So based on the client environment, like where they get licensed out, right? Then you can opt in these information so that you can see the information from there. So this setup and maintenance specifically, I just want to show you a couple of main setups which would be required for procurement that you would be using currently, right? So you would be having certain categories for your business. So for that, under procurement, you see purchasing categories. So under that, you go to manage functional area catalogs. So under this, you would be creating one catalog name, let's say with 8210. So under this, you can assign all your categories. So your all your categories can be seen at the time of creating a requisitions.
And do you mean now if I have, let's say, 300 category and I need to increase it more with 10 extra, I will define it from here.
You can define it from here. This is the one option from the UI screen.
Okay.
And the second option, which I spoke about, right? FPDA templates. These are the different templates where you can use to load the data. Let's say
Ah,
you have 500 categories, new categories coming up. So if it might take some time to get into this and one by one, right? So in that case, you can use
correct.
this FBDA templates where you can load the data and click and it will happen in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Similarly, those templates can be used for your suppliers. Let's say you have 10 suppliers coming in. Like for 10 suppliers, I think like uh, either if you do in FBDI or getting into an instance is also fine. But let's say altogether you have 100 suppliers which are onboarding. You have a data to input into a system. You can use the FBDA template for the suppliers. It should not take much time. So that's the reason like we use FBDA templates. So if you see here, right, under this category, you have multiple category codes which are assigned. Let's say if you have stationery, if you have retail, if you have
Mm.
beverage recipes, if you have categories mentioned as Sprite, anything. I can show you my live instance also for Dubai holding, but I'm not sure how I can show. So you'll be having different categories. This is the place where you can define the categories. Okay. So this is one of the important setup to be required. So if you're talking about suppliers, right, Tamara, if you go here to suppliers and you see required task, every time you go and keep it as all task so that you can see all the setups that are required. So let's say you want to set up a supplier numbering sequence. So you can start with 1 or 10, like whatever the numbering sequence that you want to have in Fusion. This is
Okay.
one of the small setup required. And the other thing, like you have different types of suppliers, right? So for that, this is the lookup where you come in and you will put your lookup codes, like if it is supplier or a contractor or attorney or insurance or manufacturing or services. This is how you
Noted.
configure the system based on. So these are the things that you can see at the time of creating a supplier. You see an option called lookup code with supplier. You can just select with a list of values there. So similarly, you will be having what is the other thing? You have this tax ordination type lookups, right? On the supplier
Yes.
side. So even the same thing can be set up here with the corporation, foreign entity, or the individual or the partnership, so on and so on. So once you put in here and save, then these will show up at the time of creating a supplier, right? So other important thing that just quickly I just want to show you, since you like I can show you on the requisitions as well, but since you are into supplier registrations, right? This is the place where we come in and set up an approvals for supplier registration. So it talks about parallel and serial. So totally, as a functional consultants, we always go to a business and ask what exactly the requirement is. We explain them what is parallel and what is serial. So based on that, they will choose the option. And we just go here and edit rules. We just write the rules based on the requirement and we just save and deploy. So this will have an impact on the approvals for the supplier registrations. So all these things, what I'm showing, these are the backend configurations, which are mandatory setups to be done as a functional consultant. And the other thing that I can show you is like procurement foundation. where you can have defined payment terms, and you will have a procurement agent access as a buyer, right?
Mhm.
If you are a buyer, you need to have a procurement agent access. For that, you need to come here, and you can select your business unit, and you can create an agent access for for this purpose. I'm just showing you this access is for US business unit. So you will have an access to purchase orders, requisitions, and sourcing supplies and everything. This is other setup.
Clear.
And, and so currently, as what I ask you, like currently you're using certain cases, right? If you can ask me from your end what exactly you want to see and the setup basis, I can show you so that you can relate to your business currently, what exactly you're doing there. So let's say receiving. So we have a receiving parameters. This will be based on your outlets. I mean outlets in the sense your inventory ops. So this is my inventory org where I've created. Then I can set up this receiving. I can always give an over receipt tolerance. If you're receiving, right, if I put it as 50, this is the percentage that is taking. Like let's say you have ordered a purchase order for 100, but you can receive it for 150. This is the extra tolerance that we are providing. So these are all the setup that we can do backend, and we can also provide a receipt numbering sequence, whether it to be automatic or manual. We can provide the number. So these are all the setups that we can do at the receiving level. As I spoke about the receiving methodology, right? You would be having direct, standard, and inspection, as I spoke about that. So this is something that we can set up from here. And you also talk about the sourcing module that you're currently using for the supplier negotiations. So for the negotiation, this is the place where we comes sourcing. So you can see your negotiation approvals, and you can have your negotiation styles. If there are any cost factors, you can define your cost factors from here. So let's say negotiation style. We can define our negotiation style here. If I go for this first one, right? See, this style, if you are selecting this style, it will only show an option of quotation. So these are the different things that you can see at the time of quotation, like general information, the requirement, and all. Like this is
So
how we set up.
Sanjay, if we need to do any changes in the parameters or the fields of a negotiation existing Outlook, we need to do it here, right?
Yes, this is the place where we come, Javed. Always use setup and maintenance. This will take you to this place. If there are any configuration changes that needs to be done, it has to be from here.
Okay. Even in terms of negotiation,
Even in terms of negotiation, even in terms of
sourcing. Yeah.
suppliers or sourcing, or if you talk about requisitions or purchase orders, anything,
Fine.
right? So this talks about purchase order templates or change order templates if you want to use, and this talks about the charge account definition that we have, right? The charge account when we try to create a requisition. So this is the place where we set up the things. You see, manage transaction account definition. This will be based on your based on your chart of accounts which are defined in the finance structure. So this is the place where we define those charge of account here based on the segments. If you see this example, the chart of account structure is based on the budget, cost center, fund. So whatever, even like out of my experience, certain cases it would be company, cost center, then the category. You always want to attach it here, right? The location. So based on that, your charge account will populate from here. So these are the always like the main setup that I'm showing you, which will be covered as part of sessions. These are mainly on the procurement side. And when you talk about supplier qualifications, right, you can always go to supplier qualification. And if I click on all tasks, I can see supplier questions. This is the place where you can define the questions to a supplier. So once I click on this, right, it will pop up a page like where I can ask a question. And what is the question type? It is a multiple choice with single selection. If I want if I want the answer to be in a text entry box, I can give it this. So these are the different parameters that you can use. So these will always be covered during the sessions, like how we can create a question, how we can add it to qualification APIs.
Sanjay, can you quickly walk through contracts also?
Procurement contracts.
Yeah.
So we have the approval groups where we can have it, and you will have a different types of contract clauses, right? These contract clauses. And currently, are you using any DocuSign, Javed, for these contracts?
Yeah, we are using Circularo.
Okay. So there will be different lookup codes for the contracts. And so mostly I don't see any major lookups available in the contracts. Majorly, I see a accrual group, and this is the information that we get it for the DocuSign. Sorry, this one. Configure electronic signature for procurement contract. This is the place where we define this electronic signature. This is the information where we need to get it from the client, the user ID, account ID. Then this is the URL. So this will be this contracts setups, Javed. This will be majorly dependent on the real time. So we just cannot go and put any random URL or random thing. That
Got
should
it.
be a DocuSign which should be attached to the endpoint. Obviously, you should know, and we should have an account ID as well, right? So without that, we cannot do
Yeah.
these things. And what else is there? So is there anything that you want to see, Tamara or Javed? So this will be covered during the sessions, everything. So if there are any like certain cases, what happens, Oracle Fusion will provide certain fields, but the client would be asking an additional field how we can have it in a Fusion. So we can create an additional attribute that we call as descriptive flex fields. So here is the place like if you want to add any additional field with the requisition header, you can go here and create an additional field in the requisition header. This is one of a setup that we use. So these will be covered during the sessions. So any questions? Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Sanjay.
So that is what I have for today. Like if you have any questions, then you can ask.